Hello all and welcome to Witch Ways. I'm Colette and I'm here today to talk about creating an enchanted rose crown that you can charge with a summer intention. Roses have long been a very magical flower. They hold the essence of summer, as do many flowers, but I think roses are really special in that way. And they're not only special to humans, but they're special to the beings of many, many other realms. For instance, like the realm of Faery. They're a symbol of love, sex, romance, adornment, and they are sacred to Venus. Here's what you'll need to make a rose crown. You need a lot of rosebuds. To get an idea of how many you need, collect them and then lay them side by side along the length of a string or a tape measure that equals the diameter of your head. And you're going to need about double that amount. Any kind of roses are good, but the more formal roses like the tea hybrids look a lot better and hold their petals better as the crown dries. You'll need a needle threader, and there's lots of videos on YouTube about how to use those. You will also need a very large needle with a very large eye. That means getting an embroidery or even a tapestry needle. I would say the bigger sizes of tapestry needles are more likely to work for you. They'll let you thread larger string through it, making for a more sturdy crown. And sort of the minimum, I would say, is size 24, and the biggest size is 28. If you can get a 28, I would go with a 28 or even bigger. You'll need crochet thread to string them. And this is a 30 weight, and definitely the size 30 crochet thread works really well. It's nice and sturdy, but it does need that really super big needle, and even then you're going to have a hard time threading it. What I used today was a size 80 crochet thread, and I had to special order that. Just search around online until I found it. And it's a much smaller thread. It's not quite as sturdy, but I'm not too worried about that. Maybe you will want a ribbon to sew your finished crown of roses onto, especially if you have curly hair. If you have a ribbon, it helps keep things from getting caught in your hair. And then also you need your magical scissors. All right, the first thing that you do is to measure the diameter of your head. And you can use a measuring tape, or if you don't have a measuring tape, although they're kind of handy to have on hand if you're crafty, you can just use some cord from the hardware store or a piece of yarn or fabric, whatever works best for you. You just want something that's going to lay nice and flat as you assemble your roses. Then the next thing you do is lay your roses out along your measuring cord or tape, whatever you have. Some people like to put big ones in front and smaller ones on the end. But I had very thin thread, and so I'm going to make mine just equal size all along the length of the thread so that it lays nice on my head. Then the next thing that I do is to make sure that all the stems are cut off the roses close to the bud. That way you don't have any stems poking you in the head, and that way also your rose crown will lay nice and flat. I just assemble them on a nice flat surface, and because this is magical, I have a special rose plate that I'm going to put them on, just because for me, my intention is about delight and honor and beauty of fairy. So I want to make it all as pretty as possible, but you can use a basket or a piece of paper, whatever works for you. With really tiny buds, I will often peel the little sepals back so more of the color of the bud shows, and they're a little prettier. And now I go into a magical space, either simply by breathing or maybe casting and calling the intention up into my mind of what I want to do with this crown. And for me, I just want this crown to be a delightful adornment to honor the summer and fairy. And I start stringing my roses. And as you can see, I leave, well, maybe you can't see it actually, I leave my thread attached to the ball because that way the roses don't fall off the end. And I just move along, threading them as I go. And you might want to sing or chant or speak your intention aloud as you string. And the part that I'm putting my needle through, I'm going to show you again on this big rose so that you can see, is this fat part of what will become the rose hip. And I just put my needle through that. If you're working with these really large buds like this, it's going to take some pressure on your thumb pushing that needle through. So you might actually want to use an old-fashioned thimble, which can be magically charged for any of your witchy craft work. And now you have your rose crown. You just form the string into a circle and tie the knot. I like to do a square knot so that it holds nice and tight and the weight of the roses don't pull it apart. And I like to do a little knot magic at this point as I'm tying it, maybe making 3 knots and saying, by the power of 3 times 3, as I will it, so mote it be, and breathing my intention into the crown. One thing to keep in mind is that the amount of roses you need will really vary depending on how dense you want your crown to be. I wanted mine denser, so I needed a whole lot more roses. And it's just always good to have more than you think you will need because you can always use them in a lot of other magical charms. Another thing I wanted to mention is that you can sew them to a ribbon when you're done. And as I mentioned earlier, that's really good if you have curly hair because roses and strings tend to get really caught in that kind of hair. And I would say the minimum width you would probably want for that is a 1/2 inch ribbon. You might want something larger. And it's easier actually to sew that onto a ribbon if your crown is not quite as dense. But if you're skilled with a needle and thread, you can make it work no matter how dense you make it. Thanks so much for watching. Feel free to share this video with your friends and like and subscribe. And please take care of yourself in the summer and be well.